Hello everyone, this is Quantilian and welcome to a new video. In this week's video, I will be focusing on Nomad Sculpt and I will focus on one tool that I feel is not as appreciated as other tools, and you're probably aware of that tool from the title of this video, which is the Tri-Planar. As always, I like to show you something I'm working on behind the scenes. So this is an environment that has been totally sculpted in Nomad Sculpt. I've used a reference image as a background, which is a sky, and I'm enjoying that. Probably when I feel myself mastering environments on Nomad Sculpt, I would start showing you and recording some video tutorial. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So let's start with a new scene. Let me remove the reference image from the background section, and I would also like to have a little bit of a different background. So let me click on the shading, move to the environment here and find something a little bit more neutral than the one that I have here, which has this blue casting. So something like that. And also I would go to my scene, and on the scene I would remove my sphere. So I've talked about Tri-Planar. What is Tri-Planar? Tri-Planar is simply that any 3D object can be defined by 3 projections. In this case, these projections are X, Y, and Z, or the way you would think of it, or front, top, left, or simply back, top, right. And the way that Nomad Sculpt read them here is simply back, right, and bottom. So this is what you are dealing with. So getting back to explaining what Tri-Planar is, any 3D object can be identified by 3 planes, and those planes are the parallel projection for 3 views covering back, right, bottom, or as I've mentioned before. So what does this mean, Quantilian? If you look into this example, it shows you that there is a sphere, I would say a circle in here, and this circle is being extruded, and this circle is being extruded, and this circle has been extruded. Now, whenever those points meet, it keeps the value of these points, and whenever these points do not meet, it disappears. If that seems a little bit too much for you, let's start with a simple exercise. So I have the Tri-Planar tool from the primitive under scene, and the objects you can 3D sculpt and the opportunity this gives you is tremendous. So whether you're looking for a realistic 3D sculpting, an abstract 3D sculpting, or even if you're exploring and experimenting with forms, this would be really helpful. Once I have it there, it would have this similar topology options that are available for others. So if I turn the wire on, you can see that there is a pretty dense wire. The denser, the more division I have, the more control I can have for the lines of these drawing. Also, I can choose if I want the size to be a cube, or if you want to change this a little bit to be more of a rectangle. So this is up to you. For now, what I would do is just simply keep the default setting and to give you some exercises that you can follow me with, and later on you would invent and find your own uses for this tool. Now, the first thing I would do, I would remove the wire. I don't need to look into it. Again, if you don't have the same shortcuts that you see in here, in previous video I've showed you how to show them, and that's simply by going to the interface icon in here and then add shortcuts bottom. I always like to have the camera reset, camera snap, and the wireframe if those are not on by default. So what do we have here is 3 planes, and on these 3 planes there are 3 drawings, and those 3 drawings are combined together to create this 3D object. There are 2 masking tools that you could use. So I'll open this as a tray so it's easier for you to see. You can use the cell mask and the mask. And if you're not sure about the differences between them, and if you don't remember me explaining them, I simply would have them explained as follow. Cell mask, think of it as a mask that is created by a mouse on a computer. So you need to start clicking point, and this point would allow you to have the mask. You could also select shape. However, the mask here, if it is set to be dot, is simply following your hand, similar to painting. So if I am in this mask tool, as you see, and I have an unmask, you can see simply that I am starting removing and erasing some of these lines. And the moment I start erasing any object on these different planes, it's impacting how this shape is. Now, I want to remove everything that you see in here. To do that, I would go to cell mask, I would click on the rectangle, I would choose it to be unmasked rather than mask, and then select everything, and that would give me a clean plans or tri-planars. Let's start with front or back, and then if you want to look at the back, then you need to be looking from front. One thing I would like to do is setting my camera to be orthographic. This would give you better control over your drawing. So what options or what can you do with such a tool? Let's start with the mask, and I could make the intensity, I would keep it high, the radius is small. I could also remove the symmetry. I don't want the symmetry on. If you keep the symmetry in the back planner, you would find that it is working. Of course, I have it as unmasked now, so that nothing is been masked. But in other planners, you need to click on symmetry here and change how the symmetry work as you look into the 3D object. I think if you enjoy 2D drawing, this tool is right your way. Anyhow, I keep advertising for this tool. This video is not sponsored by Tri-Planar tool. Let's start with masking, symmetry off, and one thing you could do, for example, is a tree. And that's what we will do here. I will do a mix and match of objects, and you would see how clean the sculpt would look like and how easy it is. So I start with the log of the tree. Now, of course, I'm trying to be as quick as possible, so my tree would be very, very abstract. But if you take time, I'm sure your tree would look much better than mine. As you see, I'm just drawing this line, and according to even the sensitivity of my pressure, it's drawing some line. I can undo if I don't like any, and let me go and try again. So what usually happens in a tree is that you have a main log, and out of this main log you would have small branches, and those branches have even smaller branches, and all the way up until you have a tree. Now, you feel free to explore. The idea of my tutorial is to build your confidence with the tool. There is no right way of using a tool. You might invent your own way of using it at the end of each tutorial. But as long as you feel yourself learning something and you have the encouragement to dip into a deeper dip into deeper limits, if that's the word, then you are on the right track. So what I'm doing now is just adding these kind of small branches, and those small branches would help me just to identify a shape of the tree. Now, you could combine both masks and cell masks. So for example, I want this to be straight. I move to cell mask, I am in my rectangle, and I have the unmask tool here. You could also come back to mask and add and a little bit of thickness to this tree. Once you're happy with it, you could start moving it around, and now you can see that this tree has been exactly extruded. And this is of tremendous help, because if you look into the wire, you can see how clean it is. And if you try to do this yourself, as in 3D sculpt it would take you a long time. I've been only 5 minutes using this tool, and now you can see that the tree looks really good. Now, this looks very thick, and that's where it becomes important to use other planes. So in this case, I would go to the right, and as you can see, the right here is highlighted. If I click on left, you can see that the light is showing. I would remove the wire, I would go to cell mask, and I would use the unmask, move it to mask, and then just mask where I want this tree to be. And now you can see that looking at what we have here, this was extruded to front, and this determined the thickness. And if I add something like a circle on the bottom, which you would see now in a moment, this would change a little bit how this look like if this and these lines are matching. So think about it this way. This is a tree extruded in this direction. It's only allowed to have this extrusion from this value here. If those two values are satisfied, then it looks into this value here. Now, this is override by here. So if I do change a little bit of these right planar values, you can see that it's impacting the overall object. Okay, let me just stop in here and leave you with this tree. If you still want this to be a little bit thinner, which I might want that, I could use the rectangle from the cell mask and unmask some part of it, and probably I could unmask this from here, and you have your tree in place. Now, what would be really cool is that you could actually clone this tree. So click on clone. I am using the gizmo tool, and then flip it around. Of course, if you have this selected with the gizmo, and then you could have the snap of the rotation up to 90, click on clone and move it to the side. Now I can simply try to put them on top of each other, and you have a decent tree. I wouldn't say realistic, but it would be really good start for an environment or an abstract 3D sculpt. So this is one of the uses of Triplanar. Now let's use the Triplanar to show you how you could combine it with brushes from last week's video. To do so, I would go to my scene. I would start with the Triplanar again. Now to isolate this, I would go click on solo, so nothing from my scene is actually showing. Before starting working on it, I would click on cell mask and then click on unmask, making sure it is clicked, and select everything so everything is unmasked. I would go to my front. I am again in my orthographic. In here, rather than me using the cell mask, I want to combine it with brushes, whether brushes you have used from previous tutorial or not. By the way, down in the comment box or in the comment section of this video, I have now shared with you a link to a folder where I am sharing all the brushes that I am using in my video, if that makes sense. So you would find the noise, you would find the checkboard, you would find the floral pattern. So all of these are available in the video. Okay, coming back to where we are. I am in my mask, I am in my tool, but Remember what we've talked about the tool in here. I can control the fall off, and I want to control my fall off here. I can control this stroke type, and I want it to be this time grab dynamic radius. I have the intensity all the way up, and then I can simply choose my alpha. And in this case, you can see that I could also import a tree alpha, or I could import a button. And I have here my button. So if you're creating a character, trying to dress him, or creating these voodoo dolls, and you want to use buttons as an eye, you could do an easy button using this simple method. Of course, I have the symmetry on. I don't need that. So I will click back, remove the symmetry, and then come again, and I have my button ready. Again, if you are modeling or 3D sculpting this manually, you would start with a big cylinder and then a small ring out of that cylinder, so a cylinder with holes, and then 4 cylinders, and hide the ring, the 4 cylinders, and mesh them all together to create this. What I require to do using Tri-Planar is having a good alpha, and you know how to create your own alpha, so you're not only limited to what you find online, and simply drag it. And if it is too thick, again, simply click on cell mask and have it as mask because it's empty, and simply choose where it would be. Now, one problem you would face is that sometimes you are putting your cell mask and you're extending it beyond the actual plane, and it's not covering everything of the plane, so you would end up with a weird shape similar to what you might see, for example, in this case. So just make sure that you are covering all of what you need to cover on the left, sorry, it doesn't matter because they are adjacent at this stage, and that you are not extending your line beyond. I would go back to my mask here, and I would click on cell mask, and I would just want to make sure that I am unmasking everything that you see in here. And the reason it disappeared is because this is taking some element out of the 3D projection, and it's not capable of computing the 3D object. So keep in mind, things like this could happen. The method I would suggest is always go and double check your geometry. This is looking good, looking frame, validate it. Now I have a button. If I go back, I can simply take this button and start spreading it around my tree. Again, I'm aiming for a little bit of an abstract, and some of the stuff I make here, it would not make any sense, but at the end of the day, the main important aspect is to get you familiar with the tool and comfortable with using it in different scenarios. So now I have a button in place. I'm just trying to moving it around. Again, just cloning and moving, scaling up, scaling down, and here you go. Now, what other options you could do? So click again, go to Tri-Planar, click on Solo, click on Cell Mask, make sure your cell mask is set to unmask, and I want it to be the rectangle, cover everything. Now, some of you are into typography or calligraphy, so you could simply start writing and extruding letters rather than you using an object and extruding from that object using alphas or masks. So in this case, if I go to mask, I would change it back to be the normal brush. I would go here to have it as a fallout and to have it as dot. So if I start writing, I want it to be unmasked and I want the symmetry off. So if I start writing, you can see here that my writing is simply extruded forward. If I want to have a little bit of fun in the way this extrusion is, I don't always need to use a straight extrusion. So what you have here is an attempt for a straight extrusion. You could do with a little bit more by changing some angle of the extrusion. What do I mean by that? Let me try to explain it here. So let me use the mask, click on the unmask, and then simply remove some of these lines and click again on mask and change this to be looking in this direction. You would find now that what is happening is that the shape is tilted following the projection that we can see on the back plane. Now, so what if you want to have an accurate lettering? And I think this would be more useful. So you could use, for example, Procreate to master your calligraphy, and then you can bring it back into this alpha as an image, and you would end up with letters similar to what I have in here. So let's start with the letter A, because I've used this in a scene lately, so why not using it again? So I have it in the A, just making sure that my fall off is straight and my grab is dynamic. Again, looking from front, center, and I would have my A in place. Let me validate it, click on solo, and add this to my objects. What other options you could do with this? I mean, it's the possibility is infinite, honestly, if you think about it. So you could do, for example, like glasses. You could do a human figure, and you could do an abstract. Let's do a human silhouettes. I wouldn't say a figure. So start with Tri-Planar. Again, click on cell mask. Remove everything you see in the cell mask. Click on solo, so it's only on its own. And from there, what I would like to have is a simple, like a cookie figure, if that's the actual word. So symmetry off, I am looking into the back, so from front, and simply start, oops, I should be on the mask tool, undo, and I should be from the mask tool on the fall off and the stroke type to dot, and I would start drawing a silhouette. Of course, I mean, my silhouette would look horrible now, but I think the most important bit is that you get the point. Let's actually, to draw the silhouette of the human, use symmetry on. This would make it easier for me, and we would have a little bit of shoulder, body, feet, and arms. And if you feel that this is too loose, you could always use smaller brushes and refine these, clicking on unmask. By the way, if you're not aware, double clicking or tapping your pencil would always move from masking to unmasking. I personally like having the user interface tool, but sometimes you would find me moving between them, especially if it's only about masking and unmasking. So if you want to have a little bit of more definition to your figure, you can go to your Tri-Planar and increase the topology. The problem is if you increase it after, so you see what's happening here. If I increase it, it would start losing some of the definition, and I need to go back and draw these definition again, which is totally fine. So as you can see here, I am just drawing these faces and the legs and the feet, and if you look into it, it's not bad. Again, similar to what we've done before. From left, go to cell mask, click on mask and choose the thickness. And what I like about this, so for example, this is too thick for a human and you would like to have a little bit of detail for the way that the face looks like. So the way to do it is you click on mask, you click on unmask here, and then you could start seeing that I can start changing some of the elements. So I can make it a little bit shorter. I can extrude the legs. It looks like an octopus now. No, we don't want that. Definitely we don't want that. Undo, undo. No symmetry. So this would give this a little bit of feet. You could also think about the way that the neck look like, and you could start changing some of these details to give this more of a human figure. And of course, once you validate it, you would still be able to use a clean geometry and work your way around it by, for example, smoothing some area, giving definition in other area, flattening some area, and so on. Let me now go back to the overall objects I have created in here. So I have a tree, a human, a letter. You can do a hand, so you can do draw an outline of a hand and then cut it from the side to be straight, and you would end up with similar setting. You can do glasses, so if you find me sometimes posting character with glasses, from front you do the front profile of the glass, from side you do the profile that looks like the lenses, the handle and the earpiece, and from top also it would look like this U shape. Now let's add a plane, mesh, plane, and I would extend it so it goes beyond. This becomes somehow my ground. You can also change the settings of auto select. So if you don't want to click on object and you find them auto selected, you can change them. So look into the settings and try to find your ways around it. Now the last thing I would also like to show you, and that would be the last exercise for today, which is an abstract piece. So go to meshes, go to Tri-Planar, and from your Tri-Planar, what you would like to do this time is click solo, click on cell mask, rectangle, make sure that you are unmasking, and go back to your brush, and I would like you to go with symmetry on and try different shape. And as you can see, this is pretty much complex, but imagine if you combine this with a shape from here and a shape from here. You would end up with plenty of weird shapes and too much detailed that you probably would not be able to have this clean geometry simply by sculpting. Now let me use the erase, so I'm just double clicking on my pencil and try to erase some of the object that you see in here. So unmask is what I'm looking for actually. I like that, and probably do one here. Here you go. Once you're happy with this, click on validate, click on the wire and see, And what I like about this tool is all of these shapes we've created, we haven't used more than 216 megabytes. So it is also very optimized when it comes to geometry. Yes, you might not get at the beginning, so at the base, the details you want to, but if you keep using it and you use it as a standard base, especially if you are more into stylized characters, stylized object, this would be really helpful. Remove the solo, and I would extend this so big, not the plane, but the actual abstract piece, and I would allow a little bit of a view, trying to experiment some of the shapes I already have from outside. Something like this. Now what I need to be in is to actually, I'm validating the plane at this stage to be in the perspective, and in my perspective here I can zoom in. Oops, I've lost my actual view. You could always click snap and reset and you're back again. So it's a little bit of experiment when it comes to actually capturing your view. So I am now just trying to find a nice view for my abstract art, which has a tree made of buttons and a letter and a silhouette with no definition. This looks okay so far. Because it's again clean geometry, I can simply start applying materials. In this case, I like using the actual gold and chrome material, and this is what I would start be painting. So I'm just applying this material. Let me add this to be a little bit of blue. You could add this to be normal chrome, and you could change this to be pink chrome. And the button here, so this would be pink, this would be pink, this would be pink as well. One thing probably I haven't explained before is that you could make the material transparent, and that's simply by, if you are in the PBR, under shading, you can go down here and change this to additive, and if it has a high metalness and low roughness, it would act as a glass. So that's what you have in here. So all looking good. Now let's put it into a fun visualization. So simply click on reflection on, so SSR. I would go here and put it the render resolution to be the highest, and that's under display setting. I can also put the quality to be maximum and full resolution. I would remove the wire so there is no need for them, and I would change the environment to have a little bit of either orange impact or blue impact. If you're still wondering where I get my HDR view, I remember explaining that to you from the beginning. So under credits in Nomad, if you click on Nomad logo, you would have matte caps and HDRIs. So this is where I brought mine from. And now I can simply add that as a view. Let me add a light, and in this time I want this to be a directional light. If I start moving this light around, I want to have this a little bit of a shadow effect. This is not showing well, so what I might need to do is just to move this around. Maybe this letter is too much at the front of the composition. I don't need that. What I need to do is I could have it a little bit higher and moving it around. So it's now a matter of you working with these composition. And once you're happy with any of these, you can simply set the ambient occlusion to be on. You could set the depth of field, select an object, and now we have this abstract piece of work which we did all using only one tool, which is the Tri-Planar. Let me save this and let me export it as a screen. As always, I really enjoy reading your comments and seeing your likes and seeing your subscription as well. So thank you so much for your support. If you have a feedback, a suggestion, or even if you managed to learn something from me, do not forget to share that work with me, either through tagging me to your post in Instagram or Twitter. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial and you've learned one thing or two, and I'll see you in the next weeks. Bye bye now.